بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Thank you very much. We thank Allah for this so enlightening, so clear, and so motivating speech, reciting salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We'll now continue with the discussion and questions. And Sheikh Hamza Sodagar, if you allow, I will switch to German to encourage the audience to ask. Wir haben jetzt eine Stunde lang Zeit, inshallah, Sheikh Hamza Sodagar zu diesem Vortrag Fragen zu stellen. Und wenn ihr euch auch so fühlt, wie ich es gerade tue, dann wisst ihr, dass es ein besonderer Vortrag ist und eine besondere Gelegenheit für uns, die wir wertschätzen müssen. Die meisten von uns haben nicht viel Gelegenheit, solche Fragen in solch einem Rahmen, in solch einem Vortrag zu stellen. Ich bitte euch, aus technischen Gründen wollen wir es vereinfachen und dem Übersetzer nicht auflasten, von Deutsch nach Englisch zu übersetzen. Ich bitte euch also, eure Frage direkt auf Englisch zu stellen oder wenn ihr euch das nicht zutraut, einem Nachbarn zu geben, der sie für euch auf Englisch stellt. Oder wenn das auch nicht möglich ist, könnt ihr sie doch auf Deutsch stellen. Ich werde sie dann inshallah versuchen zu übersetzen. Auf jeden Fall, große Empfehlung, nutzt diese Gelegenheit. Sie wird nicht allzu häufig sein, obwohl wir dies wünschen, inshallah. Damit kommen wir zur Diskussionsrunde. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bitte schön, gibt es Meldung? Please.
At first, I would like to thank you for these enlightening words. It was a great pleasure for us, and if I have understand you correctly, then you promised that in 10 years, inshallah, in Germany we have the success of the Islamic movement. So I would like to use the chance to invite you for the Islamic seminar in 2026 to come here, and then we will have a birthday or something like this. But as long as we have not reached this event, I have a question to the beginning of your speech. You said that it is for you due to reasons, not only for a feeling, but due to reasons very clear that Imam Khamenei, Hafizahullah, is the representative of the awaited pure Imam. Of course, we try to correspond this to the youth in Germany, to the non-Muslim youth. But if we say the truth, we have even problems to correspond this to our Shia brothers and sisters, not the Sunnis. So, can you give us some ideas how to deal with this problem, how to act, and which arguments or which talks can we use, which words can we use to introduce our Imam to our Shia brothers?
Thank you for the question. To the joke that you made, if you look at our ahadith and our du'as, we read du'a al-ahd. It says, إِنَّهُمْ يَرَوْنَهُ بَعِيدًا وَنَرَاهُ قَرِيبًا. Others see it far away, we see it near. Okay. If we don't see it near, then we are part of the they who see it far. We're not part of the movement. We have to know it, and we have to know that if there's a problem, it's with us. We didn't believe right, we didn't do it right, otherwise it would have happened. Okay. So I will blame you if I come back in 2026 and we don't have it. Obviously that's a joke. To the question, See, in our history, whether it's the belief in Imamah itself, believing in the Imamah of the Ahlul Bayt, believing in the Imamah of Ali ibn Abi Talib, Imam al-Hasan, Imam al-Hussein, Imam Zayn al-Abidin, all of them, right? Although that was extremely important, but the movement of the Ahlul Bayt was not setting that as the goal. It's important for us to understand this. That wasn't set as the objective. To make people believe that this person is the Imam. That wasn't the goal. The Imam is actually the Imam. He's leading the movement. Okay? And if you think of a pyramid, the people that follow him, he is at the top of the pyramid, and various people are moving behind him in that direction. Those different ranks are the different levels of faith that people have. There's a person that understands the Imam the way he is. People like Salman, people like Yunus ibn Abdul Rahman. Then there are people that we would even consider Shia, but their understanding of the Imam is less than that. According to some accounts, Abdullah bin Abi Ya'fud, one of the companions of Imam Sadiq sallallahu alayhi, his understanding of the Imam was simply, he is muftarad al-ta'a, it's wajib to follow him, but he doesn't have any special spiritual rank. He's just a regular person, but God has for some reason said that he is someone, if he tells you something, you gotta listen. Right? He doesn't have a true understanding of who the Imam is. If you want to understand the Imam, you have to read Ziyara Jama'a Kabira. Very ajib, very interesting, amazing lines. That's who he had to be. So his understanding is not there, but he's part of the movement. You even had people that didn't believe in the imamah of the Imam, but they were still part of the movement of the Imam. So the Imam is leading that movement without making it, stressing that everybody who is part of this movement has this ideology. If you don't have this ideology, you're not part of it. No. Bring as many people as part of this movement as you can, even if they don't see it at that point. This is what the leader currently is doing. He's leading a movement. There are some who have come to that realization. They have understood that he is the leader. They come to that understanding. And even they are different in that. There are some people that understand it at a higher scale. I mean, I know of people, I'm afraid to share some of the things that I know some of our ulama believe with regards to the leader. I'm afraid to share it because I think, like what was said yesterday, I think people are going to think it's a ghulu. It's exaggeration. Certain other people believe in that leadership, but they don't believe to that extent. And then certain people don't even believe in that leadership. But what they are doing is in line with it. What we need to do is make sure we understand the direction and we bring as many people as we can in that direction. The gradual process, let them become part of the movement and then gradually realize that he is the leader. We went through this. I went through this. I didn't believe always the way I do in him. But he is, no, this is, the more I have, that's why I said, the more I have studied, the more that has strengthened. From the beginning, a great alim, a great scholar, someone who is the leader of the revolution, the great things that he's doing, admiring him, but not understanding his actual status. But eventually, that progresses and we're able to learn. So, it's important that we make sure that this doesn't become the goal, this is the means. If we have a belief, we need to make sure we know what the direction is and take as many people as we can in that direction, in the process helping them to come to that understanding. Coming to the understanding, you have to use very obvious and evident reasons that are there and allow the intellect of people, the wisdom of people to work on that knowledge and to understand it. Look, what I mentioned, part of what I mentioned today, look, if it wasn't for this movement, we would not have truly, I really believe, and the more I study it, and I encourage everybody, don't take it from me, go study it yourself. We would not have had Islam if it wasn't for this revolution, if it wasn't for this movement. After the revolution, we wouldn't have had it if it wasn't for Khamenei's presence. They would have destroyed the revolution after Imam Khamenei if Ayatollah Khamenei wasn't there as the leader. On too many occasions, present this, it's not that somebody heard that Ayatollah Khamenei has had a meeting with the Imam of our time or whatever, that type of stuff. You don't need to talk about any of that stuff. This person said this or heard that or whatever. No, things that are manifest, they're open, they're out, they're right before you. All of the zalim, all the oppressors of the world, they all agree on one point, and that is this man needs to be under attack. We gotta destroy his image. Okay, whether it's the Saudis, or it's the Americans, or it's the Israelis, or whatever other European or non-European power that supports them. They all agree. With all their differences, this is their focal point. This is what they all agree. Whether it's ISIS, okay, or any of their supporters, they all agree on this point. If the whole world of kufr is against a person, that means they must be doing something really good. They must be the best of people. If all the worst people of the world hate his guts, that means he's a really good person. And this is one example. I think there's plenty of them that you can come up with yourself.
Thank you very much. Weitere Fragen bitte. Hier vorne bitte.
Assalamu
Alaykum as-salam wa rahmatullah.
Actually, I have two questions, and also go to the beginning of the speech. The first one is the timing of the message. As you mentioned that it's addressing the youth. And we know these days, such a message could be kind of a provocation. And it's coming from, and between brackets,
Kannst du das Mikrofon ein bisschen
an enemy country. How would the West and even Europe take this message and say, okay, now the enemy is talking to us. So how this can be translated? Sorry, and the second one, regarding what Dr. Yafas mentioned, is addressing the Islamic youth in the sense of putting that in a well-structured message so we understand where we are, what is in the overall program, what the leadership wants from us to do. Why the leadership waited from 2001, the image of Islam went down. So why we waited that long time? Thank you.
Very good questions, and I hope you have other similar questions. We can engage in a conversation that will help in understanding. Regarding the first question, the image of the Islamic Republic of Iran and the leadership of it as a dictator that kills God knows how many people of his own people and is responsible for the deaths of God knows how many other people that they blame, and all the other lies that are over there in the media. Addressing the youth in Europe, how do we take this? That's exactly why I said it's very difficult for a lot of people to think that he's seriously addressing the Western non-Muslim youth. Exactly for that reason. People don't think that you can address the youth in the West with that type of message. So they try to find other reasons for why he's really not that. Many of us feel that way. Many of the Muslims living out here feel that way. We feel antagonism against Islam and against Muslims and against the Islamic Republic. All the media is pumping in the minds of people is a negativity against Islam and against the Islamic Republic. Both of these. And particularly the leader himself. So in this context, we feel that we shouldn't speak about this. It's not wise, because if you talk to those people, they're just going to push back and say, oh, give me a break. Okay. I will say in response that what I understand from these letters is Ayatollah Khamenei is saying that's not my understanding. Ayatollah Khamenei is telling us that my understanding is you need to start talking to the youth. Let me explain. That's one of the reasons why I explained the examples of prophets. You know how much propaganda there was in Mecca against the Prophet? What type of a person and character they made him look like? All the negative stuff they said about the Holy Prophet. And the way they persecuted those who believed in the Holy Prophet. The Holy Prophet would say, okay, you know what? We're going to give up right now. We've got to pack up and leave. We'll go in another part of the world where they don't have this media, this type of antagonism against our message. We haven't been mocked. We haven't been sanctioned, and so on and so forth. And we're going to set up shop there, and we're going to start propagating that mission there. The Prophet said, no, you've got to continue. The message is the message of truth. And people whose minds are open will accept this. Who accepted the religion of the Prophet? Youth. Youth. The youth in Europe and in America have not been influenced by the media as much as the elder generation, the older generation has. If you speak to the older generation, you're definitely going to get that type of message. I don't know how many of the older generation you're going to find that's been poisoned for a few decades now about Islam. Okay? And they have reached ages of 40 and 50 at least. Okay? You want to talk to such people, then yeah, they have a lot of that. I understand that Ayatollah Khamenei is saying, if you're addressing youth, 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, with this type of message, you will get a response. You will get a response. And I think I agree with Ayatollah Khamenei. I think that's not the case. I do not believe that we should not go out to the youth, the non-Muslim youth, because they have been poisoned with this ideology. Yes, they've heard that, but they haven't been poisoned enough, and now if we talk this language of the truth, they are seeing so much of the hypocrisy of the West now reveal itself. The information is coming out. Look, in Europe, 40 years ago, how did Israel look? What did people feel about Israel 40 years ago? 50 years ago, how did people feel about Israel? What do people feel about Israel today in Europe? Who likes Israel in Europe? How many people like Israel in Europe? Even the people that may make policies to support Israel, they don't like him. They don't like the Israelis. An average European does not like Israel. And they are seeing that their governments are supporting them. An average German, I asked some of the brothers here, what do the Germans think about the United States of America? What do you think about the government, the American government? Average German. They're telling me the average German does not like the government of the United States of America. They hate the American government. But they see the German government is sucking up to the American government. They don't like that. More and more people are going to realize this truth. They are realizing this truth. And this is, by the way, the answer to your second question as well. At that time, the circumstances were not ready. People, because of the economic circumstances, that they're realizing the policies of their governments are taking them in the wrong direction. They're starting to realize that the foreign policies of their countries are oppressive. They're starting to realize the connections between these various powers and how they're oppressing various people. They're seeing the wrong more and more. There is more room for people to see it. When hypocrisy is at a point where people would not be able to accept, you can't go out and speak to them. I have now moved to answering your second question. Ask yourself, why did Imam al-Hussein wait 10 years to create Karbala? Did the atrocities of the Umayyads start with Yazid? No. Why did Imam al-Mujtaba not continue fighting with Muawiyah and get killed and slaughtered the way Abu Abdullah al-Hussein did in Karbala? Why? They waited 20 years. You allowed Muawiyah 20 years of government, cursing Amir al-Mu'mineen on the pulpits. Then you started the movement of Karbala. Why? The reason is the hypocrisy of Muawiyah, the cleverness of him to cover the truth was such that if Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba salamullah alayhi would have continued that battle, all of them would have been massacred, then the story would have been changed, and no one would have known the truth of what actually happened. With Yazid, it was different. People could see the truth. With Yazid, it was possible for people to see the truth. 2001, or before that, this process started, letters didn't come out. 9/11 happened, a letter didn't come out. Last year, a letter came out. The circumstances have come to a point where that hypocrisy is starting to reveal its true colors. There's still a lot of hypocrisy, but it's starting to reveal its colors. There is more potential in people realizing that. And right at the moment that this was possible, I feel that letter was released. No, that's the first of it. That's why a lot of us still can't think that this is the beginning of it. I've given this example before in other talks. I don't know if anybody's heard this. Look, you know what a sequoia tree is? A sequoia tree is one of the tallest trees in the world. On the west coast of America, it grows. If you're not an expert, when you see the first leaves of a sequoia tree stemming from the ground, you only see a couple of leaves coming out. To the eyes of a non-expert, that looks like just a couple of leaves. It's a weed. Take it out, pull it out, throw it away. You don't think there's any potential in this. A person who knows the tree say, don't touch that. That's a sequoia tree. This will grow to be the tallest tree in the world. Now it's that small, but this will be that tall. The expert knows that. I have seen with my own eyes too many times Ayatollah Khamenei very accurately foreseeing what will happen. He says, this is the beginning of this. And I have seen over and over that was absolutely accurate, 110%. When the uprisings in Egypt started, he said it will not remain in the Muslim world. You will see it in the streets of Europe. A month later, you had Occupy Wall Street in America and in Europe. 1 month later. And nobody thought that was going to happen. Okay? I have learned that I need to check my understanding of the circumstances with the leadership. If he says this is the time, I realize this is the time. I think he sees this as the beginning. It's those small leaves that have just stemmed from the earth. And you're seeing those small leaves. Ayatollah Khamenei says this is a sequoia tree. This is going to grow that tall. We need to take that from the expert. He's the expert. It's been proven over and over and over. I can go over stories. If we have time, I can give you plenty of stories. That plenty of people thought the direction is moving one way. He said it's moving the other way. Remember, when Hafiz Asad passed away, I don't know if you've read this or not. When Hafiz Asad passed away, the Sayyid went to Ayatollah Khamenei And he told them, he was concerned about the circumstances. He said, don't worry, circumstances are going to get better. The Sayyid said, he told some of my friends this. Of course, I didn't hear it from my friends. Some of my friends had gone to Lebanon, they met with the Sayyid, they heard this, and then it was published in a newspaper. I read it in a newspaper. It's online. You can check it. Whoever can read it. You can read Farsi. They said, we went to Ayatollah Khamenei, we told him this is the situation. He said, don't worry, things are going to get better. Sayyid said, before, we had to chase Hafid Assad to get a meeting with him. Now with Bashar, any second we are going to be in Damascus, we have a meeting with him. Any second we want. The circumstances improved. They came to him in the war, and they were very worried. Ayatollah Khamenei said, don't worry, you'll be victorious. And that's what proved true. Over and over and over. I have so many examples. I'm just putting out these points very briefly, but the explanation, it requires time to explain each of these examples. What the circumstances were, what the majority of people thought, and what he said, and what happened. I have learned that he is the expert in identifying what's actually going on. If he says, although I have lived in America, I think I know America better than he does, but if he says this is how America is, I have learned to trust that. That he knows better than I do about what's going on in America. I have learned to believe that. It's your choice to see if you're going to accept that or not.
Thank you very much. Es gab weitere Wortmeldungen bei den Schwestern. Dort hinten bitte, in den hinteren Reihen rechts.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaykum assalam.
First, I want to thank you for a very inspiring and motivating. Thank you very much for your very inspiring, motivating speech. I have two questions. The first one is, what is more important? Is it more important that we want to spread the letters of Imam Khamenei? What is more important? Is it more important that we spread the content, or do we also shall we also introduce Imam Khamenei to the others? Because as soon as I talk of Imam Khamenei, at least to the people I know,
Shut their ears.
yes, they don't want to listen to me. This is the first question, and the second one is, how shall we spread the content or the letters of Imam Khamenei? Shall we implement what he says in our behavior? Shall we be like idle Muslims, or what do you say? Shall we be like active?
With regards to the first question, I think we need to be more sophisticated. We shouldn't think there's one way of doing something. If you look at the enemies of Islam, look at how many different methods there are. They create Islamic brands. Wahhabism is an Islamic brand. It's a creation of the West. They pay for Wahhabi mosques and literature. They support it. That's one of the things they do. Then they support Fox News that attacks Islam in its entirety. They pay for that. They pay someone to come and talk positively about a scholar, a Muslim scholar, and they go and create the channel that destroys all of Islam and all of the Muslim scholars and mocks them. They use political pressure, they use military pressure, economic, and so on and so forth. If we have this agenda, we say the goal, I try to identify, the goal is that we've got to get Islam and the understanding of the circumstances to the European youth. They need to understand the reality of the situation. They need to stop hearing only the lies that are being given to them about what's going on and about Islam. They need to stop hearing that. They need to hear the true message. Okay, that's the goal. How do we do that? One thing we do is, yes, we distribute. Don't say, oh, we shouldn't talk about Ayatollah Khamenei. No. Part of what we need to do is talk about Ayatollah Khamenei. That's one thing we need to do. Spread the message without his name. Try to work with organizations that don't even know him or don't even like him. But make sure this agenda moves forward. Okay? This is what we need to do. I don't think that we should say, oh, we either use that name, Ayatollah Khamenei's name, or we don't. No, we do both. One part of it, let's say, Facebook page is going to advertise that. Then we're going to have other projects, publications that are going to publish Islamic works that don't have a strong political presence. We'll do that too. We'll do both. That's, I think, the response I have to the first question. The second question, again, I think we need to do both. We can't misrepresent Islam in action and expect that we're going to be able to spread the message through our words. God may do that. God spreads Islam through the enemy. I just told you that. Because of the misinformation about the Islamic Republic of Iran, in Peru, people are becoming Muslim. Right? Because of their doing. That's not, the credit of that doesn't go to the enemies. The credit of that goes to Allah. If we want to take credit, if we want to be part of this, we can't be spreading the message and not being manifestations, true role models of Islam. We've got to bring that to ourselves first. The Prophet ﷺ, he trained people and sent them. Mus'ab, that was sent to, if I remember his name correctly, that was sent to Medina to propagate the religion after the people of Medina asked for someone from the Prophet. Before the Prophet moved to Medina, the Prophet sent Mus'ab to Medina to propagate the religion. He was a true believer and knowledgeable of the religion, and he went and propagated it. If we want to do this, we definitely have to do it ourselves. We've got to practice better. We've got to make sure we learn the religion more and we implement it in our personal lives, in our family lives, in our social lives. We can't have families that are falling apart and then go bring others to Islam. We can't have horrible akhlaq with our spouse, with our children, on the verge of divorce and destruction, and then go tell people about Islam. You're not a good role model. We've got to correct our action. We've got to correct our relationship with God. We've got to correct our relationship with our spouses, with our children, with our relatives, with our with our fellow believers, and with the non-Muslims around us. We've got to correct all of that. And of course, we want to have the knowledge. We want to spread that as well. We ask Allah to give us the tawfiq to do so.
Bitte schön, weitere Fragen.
I'm going to narrow the discussion a little bit into a personal problem that most of the youth in the Western country and here, of course, in Germany suffer from. You came across a point in your speech that we should not go to the extreme, to one of the two extremes of getting into this Western society, like shaking hands and so forth. Some youth say that it's not a problem that I shake hands. It's not a bad feeling that I have when I shake hands. So they prove this in that way. And I think it's not the reason for forbidding the thing of shaking hands. So can you please elaborate more on this point and maybe give us, as your some hints to overcome this problem, please? Thank you for your large efforts in spreading Islam.
God bless you. If we want to spread this message, we've got to make sure we implement it ourselves. We started where we ended the last question, the answer to the last question. We have to implement it ourselves. Believers in Mecca, I'll start with this. I think it's important that we remind ourselves of this. Bilal, they put a very heavy stone on his chest to deny God, and he kept saying, Ahad. In those circumstances, believers like Bilal have made Islam possible for you and I. If we don't have the courage to say no to shaking hands, I don't think we're going to be able to be part of this movement. We have to have the courage. We have to have the courage. The ruling is physical contact with the opposite gender is haram, period. It doesn't matter what my intention is. Oh, I look at her as my sister. Great, but she's not your sister. You can't touch her. It's haram. We have hadith on this very specifically. And it has nothing to do with me feeling weird one way or another, or having any wrong intentions, what they call. The very fact that you're shaking hands is haram. I think it's important for me to remind us that we're not mujtahids. We do taqleed. Okay? We don't make up our rules. The rules of God are there. We're not experts of what these rules are. We refer to the experts. The book says you can't shake hands, period. As simple as that. Okay? Now, it's much easier said than done, obviously. I remember one of the instances I had to deal with this. I got on a flight and I didn't have the aisle seat, I had the seat inside. And a young woman came and sat on the aisle seat right beside me. So I greeted her, and hello and so on, to try to be polite. And she took it a bit too far, and she extended a hand for me to shake. And I said, I'm very sorry, I can't, I'm not able to do that. She started blushing, and that was the end of the conversation. The 8-hour flight, or I don't know how long the flight was. She was looking the other way and doing her thing, which is, for me personally, as a man, that's fine. Alhamdulillah, I didn't have to deal with that. But the idea is, okay, I can't help that. I can't decide to change that. The rule, because someone is going to feel offended. We have loads of hadith that talks about how you shouldn't please God's creation against His pleasure. If God says, I want you to do this, this person likes you to do otherwise. I want to please this person, I don't want to please God. It works the other way around. Please God even if others get upset. And of course, try to be as polite as you can. Speak to them, try to convince them. Of course, don't speak too much to them because that may start a different conversation. But as long as you're just trying to take away that negative feeling, and it's doable, especially if there's work that you have to do, it's doable. I know plenty of people that do this, and since we learned, because before I went to the Hawza, I was informed otherwise. I was told that it's okay. When we went to the Hawza, we realized, no, that's wrong. We're not allowed to do that, so we stopped. And since then, I haven't had an issue. It's not like, we're not going to be able to live here. No, we can live here. And in fact, I'll tell you something. Even if at that point the person feels upset and offended, if they have goodness in their heart, that can spark a very serious question in their mind. Maybe not then, but in a month or two, in a year or two, that will cause them to look into something, or that can be part of the reason for them becoming Muslim. And the rewards of that will be written for you as well. Not only did you do what God said, you caused partially the Islam of this person.
Bitte schön, Schwester.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum
I want to know, never before did somebody like Imam Khamenei write a letter to the youngsters in the world. So I want to know what kind of reaction did come to Iran when this speeches will be open to the youngsters in the West.
So what happened in Iran when the letters
Yes.
were?
No, I want to know which kind of reaction came from the West and from the leaders of the West.
That caused this?
Yes.
If you look at the first letter, it says in it that the incidents in Paris have caused me to speak to you. That's what it says in the letter itself. Okay? So let's analyze that. The leader says, what has happened in Paris have led me to come and speak to you. Why is the leader writing this letter when these events are happening in Paris? That's what he says in the letter, right? What type of, in your words, let's analyze, what do the Westerners do that now Ayatollah Khamenei is doing this as a response, as a reaction to that? Am I understanding the question correctly? That was your question, right? What I understand, now I partially mentioned, I'm going to reword it in a different way. In this battle between Islam and Kufr, the leaders of the Western world that are leading it in the wrong direction, harming their own people and the people of the world, they have done many things, right? They waged war against the Islamic Republic in the 8-year war. What did the Islamic Republic do in response? They fought back. They didn't allow Saddam, which was backed by the West, they actually caused Saddam to attack. They didn't allow him to take over, they defended the country well. So the West attacked in that way, the Islamic Republic responded in that way. They put various sanctions on the Islamic Republic. There was an economic war, various sanctions and embargoes against the Islamic Republic. The Islamic Republic fought against that. The steps they took was to develop themselves internally, right? So they developed the various technologies. The one that's on the media right now is nuclear technology. This didn't develop in the last 10 years. This started developing during the time of the war. When they started, those sanctions started, they realized they've got to build themselves internally. So when they fought on that front, then the response was in that way. When the West started fighting on a different front, they attacked Syria in the context of the Islamic awakening. They attacked Syria. The Islamic movement responded by protecting the Syrian government and the Syrian people and not allowing the West through the organizations of the various names that you have taking over Syria. So that was their reaction in relation to this action that the West took. Now, when the West saw that the Islamic movement is growing within its countries, and for other reasons as well, I think there's a lot of reasons that need to be mentioned. This is one of them. It's not the only one. People within their countries are starting to rise. The Occupy Wall Street movement is part of that. It continued in the United States for a number of months, if I remember correctly, over a year. In Europe, you had it in various countries. I'm sure we had it in the UK. I'm not sure in which other countries we had, to what extent. People have started to realize some of the realities of what is going on. Now, what the West did at this point was to bring the terrorism that has the name and symbol of Islam with it, bring it within European lands. To poison the minds of the Europeans to an extent, at a degree that is unprecedented See, even what they did in 9/11, the amount of negativity that you have against Islam is much different than what you have now. After 9/11, did you start hearing things like we should get rid of, like entire parties and movements starting that we need to get rid of Muslims? You weren't hearing this type of language after 9/11. When do you start hearing it? You start hearing it after the attacks in Paris, the first one, then the second one, and then in Belgium. So they started this attack that is, for the most part, a propaganda attack. The killings themselves are part of it, but that's to make the scene. You film it, and that is going to be your fuel for God knows how long to feed into animosity against Islam. So people were realizing what's really going on, and there are many problems in Western society. They're realizing it because it's starting to fall apart. The economy was collapsing. The various social problems that you're seeing in Europe. So people were starting to realize that. What's the solution for all those problems? What's the solution against usury? The solution is Islam. Islam is there to save mankind. That's what Islam is supposed to be doing. What did they do in return? In order to divert the attention of the people, they started this propaganda at a much higher scale against Islam within Europe. Important thing, within Europe. So Ayatollah Khamenei wrote this letter to start a front, a cultural front, an ideological front, not a military front. An ideology. When they attacked us militarily, we fought back using weapons. They fought us. They attacked us. We defended ourselves. They opened up a front in Europe, a propaganda machine against Islam. Ayatollah Khamenei is saying that that's where our next battle is going to be. Inside Europe, there's an ideological war. We've got to push this forward. My understanding of why, what type of action he saw from the European leaders that led to the writing of these letters is this. Again, I had mentioned in a different way, now I reworded it and phrased it differently, adding another dimension to it.
Thank you very much. Wir hatten schon dort eine weitere Frage, bitte schön.
So, I have, thank you for your speech, but I have two questions. Don't you think like a shaking hand is going to be a smaller point? Like we have a bigger point and bigger goal and more important than shaking hands. And if you follow that rule and after you don't do the shaking hands or those stuff, what's the like I understand the difference about what are you saying and what's your point, but I didn't get why. Like my question is, if you want to be polite and everything like that, if I shake hands at some point, I need to do it. And what's the solution for that moment? And the second question is, if I'm talking longer and without any feeling I shake hands or talking longer or something like those stuff, is it still enough?
Thank you for the question. I don't think a law of God is small. If God has set a law, breaking that law is not small. However small that law is, even if it's just that. I want to do just that, touch her this much. No. If God says this is problematic, that's a big problem. Even if it's a very minute, intricate detail of the laws that we need to follow. In and of itself, that's the case. We can't say, well, this is small, we'll do it. No, actually, one of the greatest sins is considering a rule of God to be small. That's itself a sin. If we do something that's haram, considering it small, that becomes one of the greatest sins. The other thing is, in the context that we're in, now if somebody commits that sin in Iran, let's say, somebody made a mistake, they shook hands with someone in Iran. That's one thing. But when the enemies of Islam are trying to make sure that Islam changes its form. Look, Islam has been able to prevail in Europe. Let's understand this. Let me explain this a little bit. Various cultures from around the globe were brought in as immigrants to Europe. Right? All of those other cultures dissolved in European culture. You have Chinese people that have come to Europe. Their culture dissolved. You have second, third generation Chinese that almost have nothing to do with Chinese culture, except for maybe food. The ideology, loving their country, no, they love Germany over their country. There's nothing of their Chinese culture that they carry currently. The United States of America is a soup of cultures. They've created a multicultural society that whatever part of the world you come from, you feel you belong there. First, they still have accent like, I am an American, I'm not this or that. Okay. They want to give up everything they have from before. They've been very successful at this. The problem is, Muslims have not done that. Muslims have not dissolved themselves and their culture in these countries. And they're seeing, oh my God, it's getting bigger and bigger. Now their own people are becoming Muslim. We've got to do something about this. They're going to go step by step. They're going to break that resistance of Islam. Shaking hands is one symbol of this in society. It will not be the last. If they can get the Muslims to stop that, the next is going to be banning hijab in the schools. And then sisters are going to give that up. And then the next step. And then the next step. They want to take over your country. They're not going to come and say, everybody get up and leave. We're going to nuke the whole country. No, they take it step by step. Right? The first step, then the next, and so on and so forth. So this, just because it's God's law, it's huge. We don't have the right to break that. We don't consider that something that's small. In addition to that, in the context that we're in, this is not only simply a law of God, this is a way that they're going to try to make sure you and I become progressive Muslims that think we need to change everything in Islam and just call it Islam. They have created groups. They are training people with that type of ideology that interpret the verses of the Holy Quran in a way that fits with Western values. It's the Quran, it's great, but it means this. What does it mean? Exactly what the West says. They want this resistance to break. It's actually strategic that now, if before we used to sometimes say, you know what, I think I need to, now as a jihad we need to say, no, we're not going to do this. The response to the second question, as I said, I think I mentioned this before, I think if you look at the people that have been in these countries and they have experience with not shaking hands, people have lived here for decades and they have not shaken hands with the opposite gender. I know people, my friends, and since I have learned I'm not doing that for the past 20 years, I'm not going to do it. It doesn't matter what the situation is. There isn't a situation that you have to do it. Yes, in the Risala there are hypothetical situations that I don't think apply. Hypothetical situation is if you're going to end up on the street, there's no money you can make, and you have an interview. If you don't shake hands, you're going to lose the opportunity to get that job, and you can't leave the country, you're going to die, you have to shake hands. I don't think that's going to really happen. Those are not the cases that we deal with. The cases we deal with, we can overcome them. And if we trust in God, I will end the response to this question with the end of verse 2 and the beginning of verse 3 of Surah At-Talaq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Whoever obeys Allah, God will create an opening. You think there's a dead end, there's no other choice, I'm going to die, this is going to happen. No, just do what God says, and God will create an opening. وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. God will provide him with sustenance and where he did not expect. وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. If you rely on God only, He will suffice. You don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about it. If you're worried about how people are going to think about you, don't worry about it. That's what people told Imam Khamenei. How many people love Imam Khamenei these days? Who would have known him if he would have not done what he did? How many people would have known him? If Amir al-Mu'mineen would have thought that way, in order to please this person or the other person, do this or the other. If they said that way, he could have pleased plenty of people. He fought 3 serious wars between Muslimin. They accused him of plenty of things. But his name glows today. Non-Muslims write books about how great Ali ibn Abi Talib salamullahi alayhi is. You want people to respect you? Do what God says. وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Don't allow those thoughts to come in and say, well, I think God's wisdom is not the best wisdom. I think I have more wisdom. No. Go with what God says. Inshallah, everything will work perfectly, more perfectly than you thought.
Thank you very much. We have now 5 minutes left. Please, but brief.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaykum as-salam.
I am wondering about what our actual goal is in this world, 21st century now. Is it quality or quantity? Now, you're saying that it is a beautiful dream to have in 10 years all over the world, or at least in Germany, just Muslims. Ideally, our school of Ahlul Bayt. On the other hand, in the Quran it says that we have made you people, made you humans out of different cultures, ethnicities, and different languages, different people, so that you get to know each other and learn from each other. And the other verse it says, or in a hadith, you should seek for knowledge even if it's in China. So this diversity is good. You mentioned the south of Spain, that Muslims were there. Now during that time, they were living peacefully amongst Christians and Jews. During the time of the Prophet, there were still people, Jews and Christians, who did not convert. Still, the Prophet was present, but he was okay with it. So my question is, what is our real aim? To live peacefully next to each other, or to have this amount of Muslims there, we say, now we are happy? Because one example, Mahatma Gandhi, he was a Hindu, so not even Abraham religions, but still, indeed, he was a better Shia than many people existing today. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I think I will summarize that into 2 questions. One question is about quantity and quality. Okay, that's, I think, one question in itself. Do we want more people to become Muslim, even if the quality of Islam is low? That can be one question. And another question is, do we really, is Islam really teaching us that everybody needs to be Muslim? What's the problem with it? We'll live as Muslims amongst them. There will be atheists, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, and what have you. Whatever. Create your own religion. As long as we are Muslim, we're fine. And then, along with that question, saying that it seems, according to the brother, that the Prophet was okay with that. With the first question, quantity or quality, let me put it this way. Let's understand this. I encourage all, just like Ayatollah Khamenei said in that letter, Look, read the Quran. Read the Quran. Let's understand what God has said from His own words. It's there in the Quran. What I tried to do here was to present things from a Quranic aspect, using the verses of the Holy Quran, presenting them. هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون وكفى بالله شهيدا. Is that a verse of the Holy Quran? Is that not a verse of the Quran? If it is, what does it say? If it says لِيُظْهِرَهُ, it's supposed to prevail. He wants to make it prevail over other religions. And it is going to cover the entire globe. God says that. That's what God says in the Quran. So if the Prophet expands, he went to Medina, he set up government. When he set up government, what happened? Abdullah ibn Ubay becomes a munafiq in Medina. Abdullah ibn Ubay didn't like Islam, he didn't want to accept it, but he said, I'm Muslim. The natural consequence of the Prophet setting up government in Medina was going to be that people like Abdullah ibn Ubay are going to say, we're Muslim, but we're not really Muslim. Can it be worse than that? Can you look at equality that's less than that? The very fact that you go with armed men towards Mecca to conquer Mecca, the Holy Prophet, is going to be that Abu Sufyan, the leader of Kufr, that fought Islam, will come to the Prophet and say, I believe you're a prophet. Did Prophet not know that's real, that's not real Islam? Obviously he knew that's not real Islam. I mean, I think a child would know that's not real Islam. Is that quality Islam or is that quantity? When it expanded beyond that, Amir al-Mu'mineen was sent to Yemen. He brought more people into Islam. Read the history from this verse. Is that quantity or is it quality? The people that the Prophet brought into Islam after his demise, while his body was still on the ground, they set up Saqifa and went against his teachings. Is that quality or is that quantity? Islam wants both quality and quantity. Who says that quantity is bad? If more people come into Islam with a lower degree of Islam, it's better than less people come, even if that quality is very high. No, we need quality and quantity. That's very important. That's what we get from our sources. Regarding the second question, I think there's a misunderstanding. The Prophet in the Quran wasn't okay with the Jews remaining Jews. They were simply not killed. Just because they weren't killed and they were allowed to live there doesn't mean the Prophet was okay. You guys stay Jewish, we have nothing to do with you. No, that wasn't the case. If you look at the Quran, if you look at Surah Baqarah, if you look at Surah Ma'idah, all of these verses of the Holy Quran condemning the Jews, and what they were doing was condemning the Jews that were there. God condemns them plenty of times for rejecting the Prophet. In Surah Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَعْرِفُونَهُ كَمَا يَعْرِفُونَ أَبْنَاءَهُم. The Jews knew the Prophet the way a parent knows their child. That's how well they knew the Prophet, yet they rejected him. And God says there they will go to hellfire. Is that being okay with them being Jewish? Can you say, oh, I let you become a citizen of this country, but if you act like this, then we're against you and this is what you believe in is wrong? That doesn't mean I accept you the way you are. No. We're not going to fight you. We will not kill you. You're allowed to be. We will give you even protection. Amir al-Mu'mineen, during his government, when Busr, the commander from Muawiyah, went over and he started looting the gharat, as they have been referred to. attacking like piranhas. They started attacking the various cities that were under the control of Amir al-Mu'mineen. They brought news to Ali ibn Abi Talib salamullah alayh that they have looted the city and they have taken jewelry from a Jewish woman. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, if a believer dies, when they hear this news, I wouldn't blame them. Yes, we give them protection, but that doesn't mean that we're okay with them being Jewish. No, we would like them. Why? Because for ourselves we like them not to be Jewish and to be Muslim? No, because we want them to save themselves. If they know the truth and they reject the truth, even if they live 70 years in this world without any trouble, upon death they're going to go to hell. Should I not care about them? It's us caring for them. It's us caring for people that we don't want them to be non-Muslim. Let them do whatever they want. Destroy themselves? I'm sorry, I don't think as a human being I can do that. I can't as a human being watch someone out of their own ignorance create problems for themselves, for their family, and say, let them be as they wish. No. I need to help people. Taking Islam to people is helping them. I don't think as a Muslim we're allowed not to. The Quran says, let I explain.
Thank you very much for this discussion. I have to apologize to all of you that we cannot treat all of your questions. We actually run out of time. But Sheikh Hamza Sodagar will not leave us now, so we'll have, inshallah, the time in the afternoon to ask him in private if we have some questions. So thanks for this discussion. Sheikh Hamza Sodagar. We thank God with 3 salawats, please.